mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 6 of Hulu's Only Murders in the Building, entitled Performance Review. The episode title is very clearly based on the performance review that Poppy, who is, what's her name? Cinda Koenig's. I love that name. It's obviously, well, I can't say obviously because I guess all of you haven't listened, maybe not have listened to Serial, which is, I think, the podcast that probably inspired this show. The host name is Sarah Koenig, so having a Cinda Canning on here is pretty entertaining. But it's based on the performance review that Poppy, who is Cinda's assistant, requests after she gets this guy on the podcast, this guy named Jimmy Russo, who used to work with Mabel at Long John Silver's. But before I get into that, I want to talk about just how good it is to have Tina Fey on the show. Like, whenever Tina Fey, she's not on here very often, but whenever Tina Fey pops up, it's kind of like seeing that friend that you haven't seen in a long time, and even though it's been a while, you just welcome them with open arms, you just automatically connect. That's how it feels with whenever Tina Fey pops up. It's like, oh, it's an old friend. It's so nice to have her. But her assistant, Poppy, puts her in touch with this guy named Jimmy Russo, like I mentioned, who is missing a finger that he claims Mabel caused him to lose. And he tells this story on the podcast, and he says that she cut his finger off and deep fried it. She tells Charles and Oliver that he was like a touchy-feely kind of guy, and she pushed him, and his finger got caught in a meat slicer, which I've never worked there. Why would Long John Silver's have a meat slicer? Like, when I think of meat slicer, I think that thing at the deli where they put like the big hunk of meat up to it, and it cuts it into fine slices based upon whatever dimensions they put in it that they want for thickness. But I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, why would Long John Silver's need a meat slicer? I don't know. There's some stuff going on with Mabel that I feel I'm not necessarily questioning her, but she seems to be responding to things in a way that seems a little bit more than what that thing is. Like this, like in the scene before they discover the killer has activated this glitter thing in the trash can. You know, right after that happens, right before that happens, when she's getting out of the car, she kind of blows up on Charles and Oliver, and the way she blows up at them doesn't seem to equate to whatever it is that they did. I don't even remember what it is that they did, but that's neither here nor there. It is, but I'll get there in a minute. But I want to start, before I get into what we learned this week, which is now going to be my thing every week. What did we learn this week? Maybe I'll put like a little graphic or some shit like, what did we learn this week? I'm not going to do that. I'm too lazy. But before I get to that, I want to talk about the cold open to this episode. I thought it was a little interesting because we hear Poppy narrating, and I guess I'm assuming she has a podcast. It's called The White Noise. And she's narrating, and she's talking about people who essentially tell stories to themselves or lie to themselves or convince themselves of something for comfort. And then this monologue kind of plays out over this montage of each of our main characters telling some sort of story to themselves, lying to themselves about something. Maple seems to be convincing herself that Alice is good for her, which by the end of the episode kind of seems like that's not true. Charles is lying to himself about this relationship that he has with Jan, who I've been calling Jane for some reason the past couple of episodes. But he seems to be lying about to himself about the nature of their relationship, and so is she. You know, she thinks they're still together, and Charles is like, no, we're not. Or Charles is working his way up to saying, no, we're not, which we get there, but not in the way that I think any of us expected. And then Oliver is lying to himself about these paternity results. You know, we hear him telling this guy, like, my son's paternity results said that he's half Greek, so I guess I'm Greek, not Italian. Like, that is the ultimate lying to yourself. That's like me finding out that one of my kids is, like, I'm of mixed ethnicity. My wife is of mixed ethnicity, but still, that's like me finding out one of my kids has a purely white parent, and I just go, well, I guess I'm purely white, not mixed, even though I know that my mom's black. So it's like, That was really weird, but I enjoyed that little bit of tying together of Poppy's commentary with what our main group is doing to themselves, or doing for themselves, depending on how you look at it. But I thought that was a nice little interesting cold open. So what did we learn? I want to start with Alice. Like at the beginning, we see Alice taking pictures of Bunny's like blood spot on Mabel's floor. And then she kind of like plays it off by taking other pictures too, making it look like, oh yeah, I was just taking a bunch of pictures. And then she sits down and they have breakfast. And Mabel tells this kind of anecdote about her father saying that eggs should never run, they should walk, something to that effect. Later, Mabel walks in on Alice kind of doing just like this reenactment or artistic interpretation of Mabel's life or situation. Like Mabel walks in, she hears her father's quote about the eggs being said by two strangers, and then she walks into another room and sees Alice dressed as Mabel, and someone dressed as Bunny on the ground, and they're kind of reenacting, it seems, what happened. I haven't been trusting Alice all season. They've done something a little bit different with that, with Alice, in that last season they kind of made it so that every episode kind of made you think a different person might have done the crime, but then they kind of like absolve that person in the next episode or give you someone else who's more convincing. Whereas like I feel like Alice has kind of been at the forefront as a possible suspect for a few episodes now, and this didn't help. Let's see. The matchbox. So the matchbox had the blood on it that we already saw, blood or ketchup, but blood. And Mabel notices a fingerprint on it, and they want to send it to Detective Williams for analysis. And since Charles is convinced that it was Detective Williams who texted them at the end of season 1 to get out of the building, they text that number essentially like, hey, we got this evidence, we want you to test, yada, yada, yada. And they get a response that sounds like Detective Williams, like, okay, yeah, let's link up, we'll do this, blah, 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 blah. And what they end up doing is, now I'm drawing a blank on what happened. What made them reach back out again. But I can't remember. For whatever reason, they reached back out again. Oh, it was because Michael Rappaport, in a hilarious cameo with Tina Fey, is in Bunny's apartment, and he tells them to stop recording podcasts, both of them. And then at the end of this, he kind of like offhand mentions that Detective Williams is on maternity leave in Denver or something like that. So they're like, okay, this wasn't Detective Williams who responded to us. So they set up this thing where it's like, okay, what do you want us to do? And the killer says to leave it in this trash can at this place. And they come up with this plan to essentially put a paint bomb / glitter bomb into this bag that will help them identify this person once it explodes. And now we're at the scene that I was mentioning earlier where Mabel kind of blows up on them. And they're having a situation in the car. I can't remember what it was they were arguing about. It was something goofy. And you see the killer walk up to the trash can in the background. I almost wished that they left it like that without calling attention to it and that they never notice it. But I also like what they ultimately ended up doing because it was so over the top, like the glitter explosion, the constant bellowing of smoke before they even notice. I thought what happened was really funny, and what I was thinking was going to happen just would have been interesting. So maybe what they did was a little bit better. But he gets hit with the glitter bomb. Mabel blows up on them, decides she's going to walk. She hops on the train, and she sees him there in all black with the glitter all over him. And then at the end of the episode, Will, Oliver's son, sends him a text that has the video supposedly of Mabel stabbing this guy on the train. Now, I want to talk about when I mentioned earlier that Mabel has seemed kind of suspicious a little bit, and I said that she's kind of been overreacting to stuff. What if Mabel actually did do this? Like, because, okay, Mabel was there. What if she's telling the truth? What if Jimmy, whatever his name is telling the truth about Mabel cutting his finger off? Because Mabel seemed very intent on that story not getting out, and she never really seemed the same after finding out that this Jimmy Russo guy was involved. And now he's, this story is out. She seems even more upset. And now this kind of builds this. I mean, it's the intention of Cinda is to build this narrative that Mabel has trouble dealing with her anger, right? And then we end the episode with supposedly the killer on the train and Mabel stabbing him. And I think we're meant to just kind of like brush this off. Like, oh, just like we did at the end of season 1. Well, there's no way Mabel did that. There's no way Mabel, Mabel seemed really upset about Jimmy Russo's story. But if we really play it out, there's kind of a lot of, okay, perfect example. It's like one of those, if there's smoke, there's a fire. We have Mabel at the scene of Bunny's murder. We have her, we have a story of a guy with a missing finger claiming that Mabel did it. Mabel clearly having a change in demeanor after this guy pops up and being very intent on shutting it down with her whole thing with Poppy. Like, hey, you should, Cinda doesn't respect you enough and you should not put this episode out so that way it'll, she won't look bad when this wrong story gets out. Like that, I don't know if I really bought that. And then now we have evidence, example number 3, with her supposedly stabbing this guy on this train. And I'm wondering if it's one of those like hidden in plain sight kind of things where we're all dismissing Mabel as a suspect when in reality, maybe she is doing this. Maybe she is the killer. She has a history of lying. Like there's a lot of reason to believe Mabel might have done this. But that's how we end the episode. Really good episode. I gasped at several moments here. But before I wrap up, I want to talk about some of the, I like to give my thoughts at the end, talk about some of the stuff that I thought was funny. I loved when we first meet Jimmy Russo and he's talking about his missing finger and he just goes, can't even use chopsticks. Fuck. Like, that was so funny to me because like of all the things that could be a problem with having a missing finger, I don't think the inability to use chopsticks would have that big of an impression on someone, but Jimmy's really upset about not being able to use chopsticks. Another great cameo. Jane Lynch shows up as Brazzo's body double, I love the fact that Jane Lynch is willing to play up her appearance. Like, Jane Lynch doesn't seem to have any delusions about what she looks like. And the fact that she's willing to play that up and show up as in like, hey, look at me, I'm Steve Martin. Like, I loved that. And then I loved the conversation, the breakup conversation with Jan at the end. Like, oh man, Jane Lynch is brilliant, but I think underappreciated. As appreciated as she is, I think she's underappreciated. Jane Lynch is so great, and I love that breakup conversation. Her showing up with the hat on, like dressed like Charles, the bassoon thing, and like, this is getting sexual. Are you okay with this? She's like, are you getting hot or something like this? She's like, yeah, then I'll continue or something to that effect. I love it. She's great. Did anyone? I mean, maybe it's just because I fuck with porn, but like, did anyone else notice that the Brazos logo looks like the Brazzers logo? Like, that can't be a coincidence, right? Come on. I love when after Mabel tries to convince Poppy to shelve the Jimmy Russo episode, she goes, Cinder respects me, and then you hear Tina Fey in the background like whistle for her and say, here, girl. Tina Fey, another one, brilliant. She gets the respect that she deserves, but I mean, man, brilliant. And lastly, I want to ask if this was a question because I'm going to pose this as a question because I thought this is what was happening, but they didn't actually overtly say it. But at the very end, when Oliver gets the text message from Will about, well, we later find out that it's the video of Mabel stabbing the guy, but he gets the text message from Will and he's eating like this dip. And he with like chips and dip, and then the phone buzzes, and he reaches it. He puts both hands on Charles' arm, and Charles bitch is like, "Oh, do you need a hug or something?" I'm like, and I'm rolling because I'm like, "Yo, he's wiping his fingers on my man's sleeve," and he doesn't. But neither one of them says that. And then the whole video happens, and then he goes, "I'll take that hug now," and I'm like, "Well, I thought, I don't know, did I misinterpret or did they play that super smart and like?" Us knowing Oliver are meant to deduce, like, if you're actually paying attention, he's definitely wiping, like, the chip dust off of his fingers onto Charles' sleeve so he could pick up his phone without getting chip dust on it. But they didn't really play that up, so I don't know. But, man, I thought that was hilarious. So, another great episode. I feel like this show is firing on all cylinders. It seems to have taken everything great about season 1, improved on it, and then added more. So, we have 7, 8, 9, 4 episodes left, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm really excited to see where this is going, and I will see you guys next week for episode 7? Yeah, 7. Peace.